Hello and welcome to Daydreaming Travel. In today's episode, we venture into the autumnal embrace of Central Park. Imagine you are walking along Fifth Avenue. The noise of traffic and the rush fade away when you cross the threshold of the park. The first drops of rain gently hit the amber and gold leaves. It is a rhythmic sound that invites calm here. The asphalt gives way to winding paths and a restorative silence. Central Park is not an accident of nature. It is a masterpiece designed to heal the soul. What secrets does this refuge among skyscrapers hide? Let us begin with today's episode. You feel how the hardness of the concrete disappears beneath your steps as you cross the 59th Street entrance. The ground becomes gentler, transforming into a mixture of soft earth and wet gravel. It is a physical transition that marks the beginning of your journey toward deep calm. Looking back, the Plaza Hotel rises through the mist like a stone giant. Its windows emit a warm, almost melancholy glow under the grey New York sky. It looks like a castle guarding the border between the outside noise and the silence within. Low clouds hide the tops of the tallest buildings, creating an intimate and reserved atmosphere. You listen to the rhythm of your own walk. The sound of your boots on the damp surface is constant and relaxing. The air you inhale now is different, denser and charged with the scent of soaked earth. Every time you exhale, you feel that you leave behind a bit of the tension accumulated in the daily routine. The skyscrapers of 57th Street try to peek over the oaks and elms. However, the autumn mist acts as a protective veil that keeps them out of your reach. They are silent reminders of a city that never sleeps, but today seems to have decided to give you a break in here. Time is governed by the dripping of the rain and not by the clock. Your feet lead you along paths that curve organically, taking you away from the straight lines of the asphalt. Maple leaves form a carpet of copper tones that cushions your movements even further. Do you feel how the pulse of the city fades little by little? Only the whisper of water hitting the branches that still retain their foliage remains. You stop for a moment in front of a dark wooden bench, shining from the moisture. There is no one else around you, only the peace of a garden that seems designed exclusively for your rest. The rain is not an impediment, but an invitation to observe the details we usually overlook. This entrance to the park works as a natural filter for the spirit. As you leave the pavement behind, you also leave behind your most immediate worries. You go deeper into the green heart of the island, where the paths promise new discoveries. The real walk has only just begun, and the forest invites you to continue forward. You walk a few more steps and the landscape opens up to reveal the pond. This pond is one of the lowest and most serene corners of the park. The water appears before you like a dark and crystal clear mirror. The fine rain creates a vibrant texture on the surface. Thousands of small ripples expand and intertwine in a silent dance. The reflections of the trees look like watercolor paintings spilled into the pond. The amber, orange and bronze tones mix with the metallic grey of the New York sky. It is a perfect symmetry that doubles the beauty of autumn. You stop to observe how the water softens the shapes of the distant skyscrapers. In this reflection, the city seems to lose its hardness and becomes something dreamlike. On the shore, the weeping willows drop their branches like curtains of golden threads. Next to them, the bald cypress shows its needles of a deep cinnamon colour. These species do not change colour by chance. The trees detect the lack of light and the drop in temperature. At this moment, they withdraw the chlorophyll from their leaves to store nutrients in their roots. It is an act of biological introspection to survive the cold. Near some reeds, a pair of mallards swims with an enviable calm. Rainwater slides off their plumage thanks to the natural oils that protect them. You can hear the soft splashing of their feet beneath the surface. For these birds, the pond is a thermal refuge and a vital pantry. Life here does not stop. It simply changes pace. Frederick Law Olmsted designed this body of water to offer an immediate visual contrast. The horizontality of the pond rests the eyes after looking up for so long. It is a space that invites deep contemplation and slow thought. You feel your breathing synchronize with the rhythmic movement of the drops on the water. The aroma here is more intense, a a mixture of fresh mud and wet old wood. It is the scent of nature constantly recycling itself. You stay for a moment longer, absorbing this liquid stillness before continuing. The path continues along the shore and promises new perspectives of this submerged world. You follow the path that borders the water, and a robust silhouette emerges before you. It is Gapstow Bridge, a stone structure that seems to emerge from the earth itself. As you approach, you notice how its arch is reflected in the pond in a symmetrical way. It forms a perfect circle of rock and shadow over the liquid surface. It is not a bridge that stands out for its height, but for its harmony. Touch the cold surface of the wet stone with your hand. It is Manhattan schist, the same material that makes up the foundations of the island. This rock is millions of years old and shines in the rain due to mica crystals. By using this material, the bridge looks like a natural formation of the terrain. You feel that you are in front of a sentinel guarding the passage of time. Although it seems eternal, this solid stone design dates back to 1896. Before, there was a much more fragile and complex wood and iron bridge. However, the weather and constant use deteriorated it quickly. The decision to replace it with this rock structure was a total aesthetic success. The stone resists the passage of decades and the cold of autumn better. Upon climbing its steps, the outside world seems to stop for a moment. From the highest point of the arch, you enjoy an iconic and balanced view. Behind you, the vegetation becomes thicker and more mysterious. In front of you, the midtown skyscrapers rise like distant steel giants. It is a fascinating contrast between ancient rock and As you cross the arch of the Gapstow Bridge, a discreet path invites you to move even further away from the main road. You find yourself before the entrance to the Hallett Nature Sanctuary, a small 4-hectare forest that seems frozen in time. For more than 50 years, this space was kept under lock and key, hidden from the eyes of passers-by. It was a forgotten corner that nature reclaimed as its own while New York grew toward the clouds. Upon entering, you immediately notice that the landscape is different from the rest of the park. Here, there is no perfectly manicured grass or man-made flower beds. Under the rain, the sound changes frequency. The drops no longer crash against the pond, but are instead filtered by a thick ceiling of oak and maple leaves. The ground is a dense carpet of organic matter and decomposing wood. You notice that there are fallen logs that no one has removed. It is not neglect, it is life in its purest state. These fallen trees serve as a cradle for insects and small mammals, creating a nutrient cycle that keeps the forest healthy. It is the concept of urban rewilding, where the ecosystem is allowed to manage itself. You feel that the air is heavier, charged with the sweet smell of humus and the moss that colonizes every stone surface. If you stop and observe between the low branches, you might see the quick movement of a thrush or the shimmer of a cardinal. For birds, this sanctuary is a safe stop on their long migratory journeys. Here they find shelter from the wind and abundant food in an environment that mimics the island's original native forests. You walk carefully so as not to disturb the absolute calm. The paths are covered with wood chips that completely muffle your steps. It is a space of sought-after solitude, where natural disorder offers you a peace that the symmetry of the streets cannot provide. You feel the humidity on your face and the aroma of the wet earth surrounding you. In this silent forest, the rhythm of the city ceases to exist for a few moments, allowing you to connect with the most essential parts of the earth. You feel like a privileged guest in this refuge that protects itself from the passage of time. You leave behind the gloom of the sanctuary and the path widens gently. Before you appears a structure that breaks the monotony of the forest with a nostalgic charm. It is the Dairy, a building that looks like a miniature of a European cathedral hidden in the heart of Manhattan. Its Victorian Gothic style is manifested in the sloped roofs and in the wooden decorations that crown its facades. Under the autumn rain, the colours of the stone and wood become more intense. The ochre and brown tones of the structure blend with the dry leaves that carpet the ground. As you approach, you can appreciate the delicacy of the fretwork in the wood, known as cresting. These handcrafted details invite one to imagine a time when aesthetics and function sought a perfect harmony. This place was born in 1870 with a deeply human purpose. In those years, New York was a difficult city for the most humble. The milk sold in the streets was often contaminated and dangerous for children. The park's designers created this space as an oasis of health. Here, mothers could bring their children to drink fresh milk brought directly from the farms to the north. Imagine the bustle of children playing in these portals while enjoying pure food. For many families, this was their only contact with the freshness of the countryside. It was a clear statement of intent. The park was meant to be a right for everyone, especially for the most vulnerable Gothic architecture, with its pointed arches did not seek to impose power, but to offer a dignified and beautiful refuge. You stop under the large wooden porch to protect yourself from the water for a moment. The sound of the rain hitting the slate roof is rhythmic and comforting. The air smells of wet wood and the history of thousands of people who sought relief within these walls. Although milk is no longer distributed today, the building continues to fulfill its original mission. It offers a pause, a moment of wonder, and a connection with the compassion that shaped the park. As you resume your path, you feel that this corner holds the essence of the primitive Central Park. It is a reminder that this immense garden was designed to take care of us. With a renewed spirit, you leave behind the pointed silhouette of the Dairy and head towards the geographic heart of the park. A few steps from the Dairy, the path rises slightly toward a small hill known as Kinderberg. At the top, sheltered by a cluster of trees, the Chess and Checkers house appears. It is an octagonal pavilion of red brick and dark wood that seems to observe the park from its modest height. Its rustic design fits perfectly with the surroundings, offering a visual refuge in the midst of the autumn foliage. This building was inaugurated in 1952, replacing a much older wooden structure. As you approach, you notice that the silence here has a different nuance. Under the porch roof, 24 stone tables wait patiently for their players. Now, with the rain, the black and white checkered boards shine from the moisture. Small drops accumulate on the edges of the tables, creating a liquid texture on the cold stone. You can imagine the sunny afternoons, where each of these tables is an intellectual battlefield. People of all ages and origins gather here to share a common passion. Chess in New York is almost a sacred rite. While in other parts of the city the game is fast and noisy, here the atmosphere invites deep reflection. It is a community that needs no words to understand each other, only the precise movement of a piece. You watch how the rainwater slides down the engravings of the boards. There are no pieces today, only the perfect geometry of strategy etched into the rock. This pause under the pavilion allows you to think about the importance of mental leisure. What stories of patience and victory do these wet stones hold? The park was designed not only for the movement of the body, but also for the rest of the mind. The elevated location of the house allows you to see the trails stretching away to the north. You feel the fresh air rising up the slope, laden with the scent of nearby pines. The sound of the rain on the pavilion roof is constant and relaxing. It is a refuge for slow thought in a city that usually runs too fast. You take a moment to appreciate this strategic calm before descending again toward the main paths. You descend from the Hill of Games and the landscape changes radically. You leave behind the curved paths to enter the only straight line in the entire original design. Before you unfolds the Mall, an imposing pedestrian avenue that seems endless under the rain. It is the social heart of the park, a space designed for walking with pause and dignity. On both sides, the true giants of this refuge rise, the American elms. Their trunks are grey columns that support a vault of golden and crisp leaves. These trees are survivors of a disease that almost extinguished them across the country. Here in Central Park, they form one of the largest and oldest plantations in existence on the planet. Their branches grow outward and then upward, creating a unique canopy shape. Listen to the sound of the water in this vast space. The rain hits the leaves 20 meters high, creating a constant murmur that completely envelops you. Being such a wide path, the echo of your steps mixes with the whisper of the wind among the treetops. You feel as if you're walking through a monumental hallway where nature imitates classical architecture. The air here feels more open, yet you feel protected by the golden canopy. Frederick Law Olmsted designed this avenue with a very clear intention. In a city full of hierarchies, the mall was meant to be the great ballroom for all citizens. He wanted a space of democratic grandeur where beauty was within reach of any person. No matter where you come from, here the majesty of the elms receives you with the same elegance. It is a reminder that public space is vital for the well-being of the community. You walk on the wet ground, observing how the fallen leaves form geometric patterns in your path. As you move forward, the perspective becomes deeper, and the trees seem to escort you on your journey. The autumnal light filters in softly, bathing the entire path in a melancholy and warm glow. You feel a sense of order and peace that contrasts with the chaos you left behind on the island's outer avenues. This walk prepares you for what is to come. Every step on the mall is an exercise in contemplation before the scale of these living beings. At the end of this avenue of giants, the stone architecture will reappear to greet you, but for now, simply enjoy the rhythm of the rain on this golden carpet that guides you north. You feel that time stands still beneath this cathedral of centennial branches. As you move through the southern end of this great green hall, the bronze figures begin to emerge through the autumn mist. They are the silent guardians of the literary walk. Here, nature pauses for a moment to pay tribute to human imagination. Under the rain, the metal of the sculptures takes on a dark and deep glow, as if the water were waking these characters from their eternal sleep. You stop in front of the figure of William Shakespeare. The playwright seems to be observing the ground, lost in a reflection that has lasted for more than 150 years. His statue, inaugurated in 1872, was the first of its kind in the park. You notice how the raindrops slide down the folds of his bronze garment, creating shiny paths that disappear into the granite base. The air here feels charged with a quiet solemnity, inviting you to slow the pace of your walk even further. A bit further ahead, you come across the Scottish poets Robert Burns and Sir Walter Scott. Burns appears seated, his gaze lost on the horizon, as if he were composing a verse inspired by the landscape that surrounds you. It is fascinating to observe the detail of his hands and the texture of the stone that supports them, now darkened by the environmental humidity. These works are not just ornaments, but anchors of culture that immigrants brought with them to this new world. There is an invisible tension in this corner of the park. Frederick Law Olmsted, the original designer, initially opposed placing these statues. He wanted Central Park to be a refuge of pure nature, free of monuments that served as a reminder of the hand of man. He feared that the park would become a cemetery of heroes. However, the social pressure was greater. In the end, these figures were integrated organically, allowing art and the forest to converse in a common language. You feel that these statues humanize the forest. As you walk among them, you become part of a centuries-old audience that seeks solace in both leaves and letters. The rain continues to fall, joining the cold metal with the warm and living earth. It is an unexpected harmony that reminds you that beauty can be created and cultivated at the same time. With this feeling of intellectual companionship, you move away from the literary walk to continue exploring the soul of the park. Under your feet, the mud and the grass tell a story of ambition and hope. You stop for a moment at the edge of the path. The rainwater saturates the earth and reminds you that every hill and every depression you see was planned with almost surgical precision. To understand this refuge, you need to look beyond the superficial beauty of the autumn landscape. In 1858, Frederick Law Olmsted and Calvert Vogel presented a revolutionary project called the Greensward Plan. Their idea was as simple as it was powerful: to create a space where all people could breathe the same pure air. In a city that was growing chaotically and was divided by social classes, they dreamed of a democracy of land and leaves. For them, the park was not a luxury, but a fundamental human right. What you perceive today as wild nature is, in reality, one of the greatest engineering works of the 19th century. In order for you to enjoy this serenity today, thousands of men moved tons of rock and earth. They created lakes where there were swamps and hills where the ground was flat. They planted every tree and placed every rock so that the landscape would look like it had always been there. It is a beauty manufactured to heal the spirit. Olmsted firmly believed in the healing power of green. For him, the noise and overcrowding of New York were tensions that only the natural landscape could alleviate. As you walk today under this fine rain, you participate in that visual medicine. You feel the stress dissolve because this environment was designed to deceive your senses. The goal was to convince you that the world has always been this calm and eternal. This vision transformed a sterile and rocky terrain into the beating heart of the island of Manhattan. As you move along the wet paths, notice how the design embraces you and guides you without you realizing it. You are not a simple visitor, but the very reason for being of this entire immense project. The rain continues to fall on this artificial garden, reminding you that true peace can also be built with will and vision. You venture deeper into the landscape now, knowing that every corner was created with your well-being in mind. At the end of the walk under the elms, the space suddenly expands. You find yourself in front of Bethesda Terrace, the great architectural heart of this refuge. It is a stone stage that seems to sprout from the earth itself to embrace the landscape. Under this soft rain, the colour of the structure is transformed. The New Brunswick sandstone takes on a deep and earthy mustard tone, shining with a soft and matte light. Approach the railings and let your fingers run over the carved reliefs. The stone feels cold and slightly rough to the touch. The 19th century artists did not sculpt heroes or battles here, but nature itself. It is a visual tribute to the life that beats in every corner of the park. If you observe closely, you will discover the cycle of life engraved in the rock. There are delicate flowers that announce spring and ripe fruits that celebrate summer. You will also see motifs of birds and plants that seem to bend under the weight of an invisible winter. It is a poem about the passage of time, engraved forever in the center of Manhattan. The proportions of this place are majestic, yet welcoming. The two large side staircases descend with a slow elegance, inviting you down to the water level. Everything here was designed to make you feel part of something grand. It is the perfect point of union between human ambition and the beauty of the forest. From this elevated position, the view is lost over the lake. Today, the surface of the water is covered by a light mist that softens the contours of the opposite shore. The rowboats rest empty, barely swaying from the rhythmic impact of the droplets. The grey of the sky and the ochre of the stone blend into a colour palette that invites silence. You feel that the noise of the city has been left definitively behind. The design of the terrace acts as a filter that stops the outside chaos. All that remains is the harmony of these classical forms integrated into the autumnal foliage. It is a space that makes you feel small and protected at the same time. You breathe the damp and fresh air while contemplating the symmetry of this natural balcony. It is a moment of quiet wonder. Can you feel the calm that emanates from this centuries-old stone? Bethesda Terrace is a reminder that the hand of man can also create peace. You stay a moment longer at the top, overlooking this landscape of water, before allowing your steps to guide you toward the lower level. You descend the stone stairs of the terrace, and the air suddenly becomes cooler. The light dims as you take refuge under the arches of the lower passage. Here, the sound of the rain is transformed into a distant and rhythmic echo. You are entering a kind of underground cathedral hidden in the heart of the island. You look up, and the grey of the sky disappears completely. Above your head, a tapestry of vibrant colours and elegant shapes unfolds. These are the famous Minton tiles, a unique jewel of the Victorian era. This ceiling is composed of 15,000 individual pieces that fit together with astonishing precision. The tiles were manufactured in England using an inlaid clay technique. The colour is not just on the surface but forms part of the material's very structure. That is why the deep blues and golds shine today with the same intensity as they did 150 years ago. It is a burst of art that defies moisture and the passage of time. You observe the geometric patterns that intertwine above you. There are stylized flowers and mandalas that seem to spin in a silent dance. It is a fascinating contrast to the free nature you have seen on the paths. Here, everything is order, symmetry, and an aesthetic intention that seeks to elevate the visitor's spirit. The space possesses a magical acoustics that transforms any sound into something special. The notes of a cello begin to float from the center of the tunnel. The music bounces off the brick walls and the ceramic ceiling. The sound becomes denser and warmer in this stone refuge. You stop to listen, feeling how the melody mixes with the smell of wet stone. The musician knows that this corner is a perfect stage for his art. The notes seem to chase the rhythm of the drops falling outside the passage. It is a private concert that invites you to close your eyes for a moment. This passage was originally designed to connect the central mall with the lake. However, it became a destination in its own right thanks to its hidden beauty. It is a reminder that the greatest treasures sometimes require us to lower our gaze or seek refuge. Had you imagined finding such a display of luxury beneath the park floor? The golden light emanating from the ceiling offers you a comforting warmth on this grey day. You enjoy this sonic pause before heading out again to meet the water. The path to the fountain awaits you just at the end of this tunnel of colours. You step out from the shelter of the arches and the grey light of the sky surrounds you once more. Before you stands the Bethesda fountain, a monumental structure that seems to pray under the rain. The water from the fountain and the drops from the sky meet in a liquid embrace over the pond. You feel that the air here is purer and more vibrant. At the top, a bronze figure unfolds its wings with an eternal grace. It is the Angel of the Waters, a work created by the sculptor Emma Stebbins in 1873. She became the first woman to receive an artistic commission of this magnitude in New York. Her angel not only watches over the park, but blesses the entire city. To understand its presence, we must remember the past of this island. Before the 19th century, New York struggled against diseases caused by contaminated water. This fountain was built to celebrate something that we take for granted today: the arrival of fresh and pure water. Thanks to the Croton Aqueduct, life in the city changed forever. The figure holds a lily in its hand, a symbol of the purity that water brought to homes. Below the angel, 4 cherubs represent temperance, purity, health and peace. It is a monument to the survival and physical well-being of the citizens. Here, artistic beauty is placed at the service of a story of public health. The name of the fountain takes us to an ancient story. According to biblical accounts, the pool of Bethesda in Jerusalem had healing properties. It was said that an angel stirred its waters to heal those who immersed themselves in them. By naming this place with that name, the designers promised that this park would be a space for spiritual healing. Listen to the murmur of the jets falling onto the circular surface. The sound is deeper than that of the fine rain hitting your umbrella. It is a constant rhythm that seems to cleanse the environment and your own mind. You stop to contemplate how the dark bronze shines under the dampness of the New York autumn. Can you feel the strength of this symbol in the middle of the forest? The fountain is not just an ornament, but the heart that pumps serenity to the entire grounds. You observe the serene face of the angel one last time before continuing your path along the shore. The rain continues to fall, nourishing the life that pulses in every corner of this sanctuary. You leave behind the majesty of the fountain and allow the path to bring you closer to the very edge of the water before you unfolds. The lake, an 8-hectare expanse that meanders through the vegetation as if it had always been there. Under this constant rain, the surface is not a smooth mirror, but a living texture of thousands of concentric circles. The shape of this body of water does not follow straight lines. Its banks curve and hide behind small promontories and willows, creating a sense of mystery. You cannot see where it ends, and that is precisely the intention of its design. It feels like a leisurely river that invites slow exploration. In the distance, the silhouette of the Loeb boathouse emerges through the autumnal mist. Its dim lights are reflected on the greyish water, offering a warm point of reference in the middle of the fog. This building is the nerve centre for those seeking to enjoy the water from a different perspective. You approach the wooden docks, where the rowboats rest lined up. Today, due to the rain, they remain empty and sway with a rhythmic laziness. Listen to the sound of the wooden hulls softly striking the wet pilings. It is a dull creak that transports you to a slower time. The smell here is intense and comforting. It is a mixture of the pungent scent of wet cedar and the rain-soaked rope of the moorings rowing on this lake has been a ritual of calm since 1860. Back then, visitors glided through these waters to escape the rigidity of the city. Observing the lake from the shore, Manhattan seems to recede 1 kilometre for every metre of water. It is a space where conversations become whispers and thoughts find room to expand. The lake acts as a blue lung that softens the accelerated pulse of the great metropolis. You watch how the raindrops slide down the wooden seats of the boats. Although there are no rowers today, the romantic essence of the place remains intact under the grey sky. You stay for a moment contemplating the liquid immensity, feeling how the water dictates a new form of tranquility. The walk continues along this winding shore. Each curve of the path offers a new scene of this aquatic refuge that resists being captured in a single glance. The sound of the rain on the surface accompanies you as you head toward the next bridge crossing this mirror of peace. You continue walking along the northern shore of the lake. Between the trees, an elegant white curve appears that seems to float over the water. It is Bow Bridge, the most romantic arch in the entire park. Its name is no coincidence. Its shape is reminiscent of a violin bow or that of an archer's bow, delicately tensioned over the liquid surface. As you approach, you notice that it is not made of stone like Gapstow Bridge. This structure was completed in 1862 and was the first cast iron bridge on the grounds. The metal, painted a soft white, shines under today's light rain. You feel as though you are walking across a jewel of Victorian engineering that has survived the passing of centuries. Touch the iron railing. You notice the complexity of its engravings and the elegance of its classical vases. These details, known as neoclassical motifs, give it an air of eternity. Beneath your feet, the wood of the floor absorbs the sound of your footsteps. The rain hits the metal with a dull tinkling distinct from the murmur of the leaves. You stop right in the centre of the arch. From here, the view is one of the most famous in the world. In the distance, the twin towers of the San Remo building emerge from the mist like two stone lighthouses. Their domes are lost among the low clouds, creating a melancholy and cinematic image. It is the perfect framing between the city and the garden. Bow Bridge has been witness to thousands of promises and encounters. Its curved design invites one to stop, not just to pass. It is a privileged viewpoint where time seems to flow more slowly than in the rest of the island. Here, the architecture does not compete with the landscape, but instead frames it with an almost musical delicacy. You observe how the water of the lake slides under the structure. The reflections of the willows mix with the white silhouette of the bridge on the wet mirror. You feel a deep calm being suspended between two worlds. On one side, you leave the orderly civilization of the Terrace, and on the other, the mystery of the wildest woods awaits you. You breathe the moisture-laden air as you cross the final meters of the bridge. The iron structure has served as your guide in this transition toward the heart of the park. Upon reaching the other end, the dirt ground welcomes you back. You now enter a labyrinth of paths that promise a different adventure under the rain. As you leave behind the white elegance of Bow Bridge, the terrain begins to rise almost imperceptibly. You find yourself now at Cherry Hill, a gentle hill that offers a privileged view over the waters you have just skirted. Here, the landscape opens up to show you how the engineering of the past adapted delicately to the customs of another era. This circular space was designed specifically for 19th century carriages. Imagine for a moment the sound of horses' hooves on the ground and the creaking of wooden wheels. Back then, this was the favourite place to see and be seen. Carriages turned in this perfect loop, allowing their occupants to enjoy the lake breeze without having to step down from their vehicle. It is fascinating to think that this corner was the technological solution to the mobility desires of more than 150 years ago. At the centre of this turn stands the Cherry Hill Fountain, a jewel designed by Jacob Ray Mould. Unlike the majesty of the Bethesda fountain, this structure has a much more intimate and delicate scale. As you approach, you notice that the rain highlights the natural colours of the granite and cast iron. The piece is crowned by a carved glass sphere that shines under the grey New York sky. Observe calmly the details that the artist hid in the metal. There are figures of birds that seem about to take flight and fish emerging from invisible water. These animal motifs remind us that even in the most functional elements, the design sought a constant connection with the living. The sound of the water hitting the stone basin is soft. It is almost a whisper that gets lost among the rhythmic patter of the rain on the leaves. Around you, the cherry trees that give the hill its name experience their own transformation. In spring, they are famous for their clouds of pink flowers. However, autumn grants them a different and mature beauty. Their leaves have been dyed a vibrant orange and a deep red that seems to burn under the dim light. It is a reminder that nature always has a new way to amaze us. You feel how the humidity intensifies the colour of the dark bark of the trees. This place marks an important transition in your walk. You are leaving behind the more open area of the lake to seek the protection of the nearby forests. The air feels denser, and the scent of wet earth becomes the absolute protagonist of your senses. You enjoy this historical viewpoint before allowing the path to guide you into the thicket. You cross the boundary of a quiet zone and the atmosphere transforms immediately. You find yourself in strawberry fields, a corner of the park that functions as an international garden of peace. Here, the pulse of the city feels further away than ever. Under the rain, this space acquires a solemnity that invites deep introspection. Your feet lead you toward the center of this refuge where the ground reveals a simple and powerful work of art. It is the imagined mosaic, a circular piece of black and white tiles. It was a gift from artisans in Naples, Italy, to honor the memory of John Lennon. The design is humble, but its emotional impact is immense. You observe how rainwater accumulates in the joints of the mosaic, highlighting the contrast of its colors. Often, someone leaves a fresh flower or a wreath of branches over the central word. On this grey day, the moisture makes the stones shine more intense and melancholy. It is a meeting point for people from all corners of the world. Around you, the landscape has been designed to represent global unity. Countries from the 5 continents donated plants and trees to create this 1-hectare sanctuary. It is a miniature forest where species from very different climates coexist. This collective effort turns the garden into a living symbol of what humanity can achieve when it seeks harmony. The area is officially designated as a zone of absolute stillness. Here you will not hear loud music or harsh noises, only the whisper of the wind and the constant dripping on the foliage. This calm is necessary to process the historical weight of this place. You find yourself just a few meters from the Dakota building, where Lennon lived and where his voice was extinguished in 1980. You feel that this corner of the park is a reminder that peace is something that must be cultivated every day. The rain seems to wash away the sorrows of the past, leaving behind a renewed and hopeful air. As you walk away from the mosaic, you take with you that sense of communion with the rest of the world. The path now invites you to continue exploring how the city and nature merge into eternal stories. You move away from the strawberry fields mosaic and cross an invisible border to the north. Suddenly, the vastness of the lake and the clear lines of the horizon disappear. You enter the Ramble, a 15-hectare labyrinth that defies any sense of direction. Here, the park's design becomes deliberately wild and dense. It is an abrupt transition that forces your senses to sharpen under the pitter-patter of the rain. Frederick Law Olmsted considered this corner the jewel in his crown. His goal was to recreate the deep forests of the Adirondack Mountains in the heart of Manhattan. While the Mall offered you a majestic and straight walk, this place invites you to confusion. Here, there are no hierarchies or open perspectives. There is only the dense embrace of the undergrowth and the paths that twist upon themselves in an organic way. You walk along narrow paths that rise and fall whimsically. You feel lost, and that is precisely the magic of this place. The design aims for you to completely forget where north or south is. By losing your orientation, you also lose track of time. The rain falls heavily on the tops of the oaks, This green roof creates a dome that completely isolates you from the outside world. The stones on the path are pieces of native schist. They have been placed with an almost invisible mastery to appear natural. Every rock and every bush blocks the view of the nearby buildings, although the skyscrapers are just a few meters away. Here they seem to have been devoured by the jungle. You stop in front of a small stream that murmurs among the wet rocks. Rainwater feeds this stream bed that seems to have flowed like this for millennia. In this controlled chaos, the air feels fresher and charged with oxygen. The scent of pine and soaked earth becomes much more penetrating. You no longer hear the hum of engines, only the water and the rustle of branches. It is a masterpiece of planned imperfection. As you walk through here, you allow your mind to get lost as well. You find a peace that is only born when you stop looking for the way out. You venture deeper into the labyrinth of the forest and the dirt path becomes narrower. The underbrush seems to whisper as you pass while the branches of the bushes gently brush against your shoulders. Suddenly, the foliage opens up to reveal a corner that looks like something out of an ancient tale. You are in front of Azalea Pond, a tiny and secret pond that few manage to find. It is a liquid jewel protected by a wall of rocks and thick vegetation. The rain here has a particular sound, much more intimate and delicate. The drops do not hit the water directly, but are instead filtered by the fronds of the ferns. You hear the rhythmic clicking of the water sliding down the green leaves before joining the pond. The ground surrounding the shore is covered in an emerald moss that glows with the moisture. As you approach, you feel the fresh scent of peat and old wood soaked by the storm. This small body of water is the heart of a fascinating microclimate. For us, it is a place of rest, but for the wildlife, it is an oasis of survival. This pond is a key stop on the Atlantic Flyway. Thousands of small birds find a safe refuge here on their journeys of thousands of miles. In this corner, the birds feel protected from the wind and find food among the wet roots. It is moving to think that such a small space sustains the lives of beings that cross continents. You stop for a moment next to a rock covered in soft grey lichens. The surface of the pond is almost motionless, broken only by the concentric circles of the fine rain. There are no skyscrapers visible from here, no engine noises, no rush. There is only the peace of the azaleas that are now resting, waiting for their time to bloom again. You feel that you have discovered a sanctuary within the sanctuary, a place where nature folds in on itself. You breathe deeply of the oxygen-laden air and notice how the calm of the water transfers to your interior. Azalea Pond reminds you that true greatness is not always monumental. Sometimes the deepest peace is hidden in the humblest and quietest places of the forest. With your spirit renewed by this stillness, you prepare to return to the path. The wild heart of the park still holds more secrets waiting to be discovered amid the mist. Leaving the thicket of the Ramble, the ground becomes firm and steep under your feet. Before you rises Vista Rock, one of the oldest and most solid rock formations on the entire island. It is a mass of grey schist that emerges from the ground like the back of a sleeping giant. As you climb its stone steps, you notice that the air becomes lighter and cooler. You are ascending to the highest natural point in all of Central Park. At the summit, amidst the mist, the silhouette of a miniature castle appears. It is Belvedere Castle, a stone fantasy that seems taken from a European legend. Its walls combine Gothic and Romanesque styles, with robust arches and towers that defy gravity. The name Belvedere means beautiful view in Italian, and you will soon understand why they named it so. It is a structure that does not seek defense but pure visual delight. Approach the dark granite walls and feel the moisture of the rain on the cold surface. This castle was not built for kings, but to feed human curiosity. Since 1919, this place has served as an official weather station for New York City. Here, precise instruments measure wind speed and ambient temperature. It is the exact point where poetic architecture meets the rigor of science. You lean on the stone balcony of the main tower. From this height, the park unfolds before your eyes in all its immensity. Below lies the great lawn, a green carpet that today shines with an emerald hue under the grey sky. The rain softens the edges of the distant skyscrapers, turning them into elegant shadows that guard this oasis. It is a moment to take a deep breath and feel like the owner of this peaceful horizon. The castle offers you a new perspective, lifting you above everyday concerns. What secrets does the wind tell us as it hits these centuries-old battlements? You feel the strength of the rock under your feet and the delicacy of the water on your face. It is a perfect connection between the solid earth and the infinite sky. You stay a moment longer contemplating the grandeur of the landscape before starting the descent toward new paths. You descend from the castle hill, and the path becomes intimate. You enter the Shakespeare garden, a 4-hectare corner where literature comes to life through roots. Here, the autumn rain not only wets the earth but seems to recite verses over the tired petals. This place was born in 1913 as the People's Garden. It was designed to be a refuge where the beauty of flowers and the depth of words would meet. As you walk through its narrow paths, you feel that you have left New York to enter a Victorian poem. The air here is different, laden with the perfume of herbs that have been famous for centuries. You stop before a rosemary bush whose small leaves catch the water droplets as if they were diamonds. According to the words of Ophelia, rosemary is for remembrance. Beside it, the pansies seem to observe you with their velvety petals. These flowers represent reflection and memory in the English bard's work. You also find rue, that plant with a bitter aroma that symbolizes repentance and grace. Observe the railings that guide your steps along the slope. They are made of rustic wood, following the original style of the park's founders. Cedar wood is used so that the structures seem to be born from the forest itself. Touching them, you feel the roughness of the wet bark under your fingers. It is a humble craftsmanship that respects the irregularity of nature. The sound of the rain in this garden is subtle. The water hits the leaves of the hedges and the small bronze plaques. Every corner invites you to discover a connection between botany and classical theatre. It is a space designed for mental wandering. Here, every flower tells a story of love, tragedy, or hope. You sit for a moment on one of the dark wood benches. The humidity highlights the colour of the last flowers of the season that resist falling. Here, time is not measured in minutes, but in stanzas. You feel a deep peace knowing that this garden was created so that we could all dream among the branches. You enjoy the literary silence before continuing your way toward the next refuge. Leaving the peace of the literary garden, the path guides you toward an unexpected vision. Between the trees, a dark wood cottage emerges that seems to have been transported from a European forest. It is the Swedish cottage, a corner of Scandinavia in the heart of the island. Under the rain, the pine wood shines with a deep and resinous tone. This structure was not born in New York. It crossed the ocean to represent its country in a large international exhibition in 1876. The park's architect was fascinated by its handcrafted beauty. Because of this, he decided to bring it to this corner a year later, in 1877. Observe the details of its traditional Nordic architecture. The beams are joined with a precision that requires no nails, following centuries-old carpentry techniques. The design imitates a Swedish rural school of the time. Its small windows and carved frames give it a fairy tale air. This style enchants any walker seeking a visual refuge among the underbrush. As you approach, the scent of damp cedar mixes with the freshness of the rain. The wooden porch offers you a brief shelter from the water. The sound of droplets on the sloped roof is soft and comforting. Here time feels different, more paused and full of a magic that invites dreaming. In 1947, this space found a new and magical vocation. It was transformed into the home of a marionette theatre that still marvels everyone today. The marionette strings bring life to classic stories on this wooden stage. It is a place where fantasy and reality hold hands under the trees. You stop for a moment to contemplate the cottage wrapped in the autumn mist. Its presence breaks the seriousness of the skyscrapers with its rustic warmth. It is a reminder that the park is a mosaic of cultures and shared dreams. You resume your way along the wet paths, searching for the next discovery. From the stone base of the castle, your gaze descends toward a patch of serene water. It is Turtle Pond, a pond that seems to collect all the rain falling from the heights of Vista Rock. The path leads you gently toward its shore, where the bustle of the park is transformed into a liquid silence. The surface of the pond is a moving canvas today. Thousands of drops strike the water, creating a constant vibration that blurs the reflection of the stone towers. However, in moments of calm, the building seems to float inverted over the dark water. It is a perfect symmetry that invites you to stop and simply observe. If you look closely among the aquatic plants, you will see the protagonists of this corner, red-eared slider turtles, poke their small heads above the water level. Some rest motionless on submerged logs, letting the rain clean their dark shells. For them, time does not have the same urgency as it does for the rest of the city. Snapping turtles also live here, larger and more mysterious, hidden in the muddy bottom. These creatures are native survivors that find a perfect refuge in this mud. You see them glide with a hypnotic slowness, reminding you of the importance of moving without haste. Do you feel how their leisurely rhythm is contagious to your steps? On the other side of the water, the wooden structure of the Delacorte Theatre rises. It is a famous stage where the words of great authors come to life under the stars today. The theatre rests in silence, surrounded by the mist and the foliage of the willows. The proximity of the theatre and the pond creates an atmosphere of drama and serenity. Just behind the theatre, the horizon opens toward the great lawn. That immense green plain, which was once a reservoir, is today the widest space in the park. It is an ocean of grass that now drinks the rain greedily. You feel the immensity of this lung that stretches toward the north, connecting the pond with the heart of the grounds. You stay a moment longer by the shore of Turtle Pond. The scent of fresh water and wet earth is penetrating and relaxing. You watch the last blink of a turtle before it dives back into the depths. This pause allows you to reconnect with the life that beats beneath the surface, away from quick glances. You leave the pond area and the horizon expands spectacularly. Before you, the great lawn unfolds, an immense 22-hectare meadow that seems endless. Under the fine rain, this open space feels like an ocean of emerald grass. The contrast is amazing after walking through the narrow and enclosed paths of the forest. You feel the freedom of a view that reaches all the way to the distant buildings. To understand this perfect void, you must imagine that you are traveling into the past. Where you see grass today, there once existed an enormous water structure contained by stone walls. It was the old Croton Reservoir, the heart of the city's water system. This place was not originally designed as a recreation field. It was a vital water reservoir for the survival of New Yorkers a long time ago. Its transformation into this green space occurred in an unexpected and painful way. During the Great Depression of 1930, the reservoir dried up and the land was occupied. Hundreds of people who had lost everything built their humble homes here. So-called Hoovervilles emerged, small shelters of wood and cardboard. It was a time of struggle and survival right here, beneath your very feet. It is moving to think about the capacity of this soil to heal and transform. What was an industrial reservoir and later a symbol of crisis is today a temple of peace. After those difficult years, the city decided to sow hope in the form of grass. The land was leveled and became this green hall that we know today. It is a testament to the resilience of nature and the human spirit. Listen to the silence in this great open plain. Without the trees to stop the wind, the rain falls here with absolute freedom. Imagine this place full of music during the great opera concerts, or visualize the movement of athletes in the various baseball fields that lie empty today. The meadow seems to breathe deeply under the grey autumn sky. You walk along the edge, feeling the monumental scale of this immense garden. The great lawn is a reminder that New York always knows how to reinvent itself. Every blade of wet grass holds a story of constant change and overcoming. You stop for a moment to absorb this sensation of vastness and deep calm. You continue your way north, leaving behind this carpet of living history that pulses beneath your steps. As you leave behind the immensity of the great lawn, your steps guide you toward a small elevation behind the Metropolitan Museum. Amidst the mist and the bare branches, a silhouette emerges that defies the verticality of the skyscrapers. It is not a steel structure nor a century-old tree. You are standing before Cleopatra's Needle, the oldest object you can touch in the entire city. Under the soft rain, the pink Aswan granite takes on a dark and solemn tone. As you approach, notice how the raindrops slide down the hieroglyphs carved into the rock. These signs have endured the desert sun for more than 3,500 years. It is staggering to think that this stone was already ancient when the Roman Empire was barely beginning to dream of its glory. Feel the cold and ancient texture of the surface. While New York was being built with brick and haste, this obelisk already guarded temples in distant Heliopolis. The engravings tell stories of Pharaoh Thutmose III, celebrating victories and divinities under a sky very different from the one covering you today. The autumn rain seems to wash away the centuries of dust accumulated on its perfect edges. To understand how this 220-ton giant arrived here, imagine the year 1881. It was an astounding feat of engineering. The obelisk crossed the ocean from Alexandria in a ship specially designed to carry it, once on the coast of Manhattan. It took 112 days to move it just a few miles to this exact spot. They did it using wooden rollers and the brute force of hundreds of men over the mud. Look at the base of the structure. You will see solid bronze crabs that seem to hold the weight of history on their backs. They are replicas of the originals that the Romans placed centuries after its creation to stabilize the stone. These metallic crustaceans shine today with the moisture, serving as a visual bridge between ancient Egypt and New York modernity. You stop for a moment, allowing the silence of the park to envelop this eternal monument. Here, time is not measured in minutes but in millennia. The rain hits the granite with the same rhythm with which it once hit the sands of the Nile. It is a silent reminder that although cities change, there are elements that remain immovable. You enjoy this encounter with eternity before descending again toward the paths that lead you north. You walk away from the Egyptian stone and the sky opens wide. Before you appears a body of water so vast that it seems like an inland sea. It is the Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis Reservoir. It consists of 43 hectares of liquid surface that today, under the rain, merge with the grey horizon. You feel that the scale of the park has changed again, becoming immense and silvery. You walk along the famous running track that surrounds the perimeter. The ground has a soft and sandy texture that absorbs the impact of your steps. To your right, the cast iron fence accompanies you every metre. This structure was painstakingly restored to recover its original 1864 design. Its dark spears shine with the moisture, marking the limit between the path and the abyss of water. Stop for a moment and look toward the west. The buildings of the Upper Manhattan area are reflected on the surface like submerged glass giants. The light rain breaks the clarity of the mirror and creates an impressionistic image of the city. The water and the sky seem to meet at a point where you no longer know which is which. It is a dance of lights and shadows that only occurs on grey days. This pond was not always a visual refuge. For more than a century, it was a key piece for the city to be able to drink. Millions of litres that arrived from upstate were stored in these waters. Although today it no longer supplies New York homes, it continues to fulfill a vital function. It is a humid lung that regulates the climate and offers a mental rest to those who surround it. You feel that walking through this 2.5-kilometre ring is a ritual of meditation in motion. The rhythm of the rain on the surface is hypnotic and constant. There are no hidden corners here, only the clarity of a circle that seems infinite. You feel part of a circular choreography that has united thousands of people throughout the decades. The air over the reservoir is cleaner and colder than in the forests to the south. You deeply inhale the moisture-laden breeze, feeling how it clears your thoughts. The silhouette of the skyscrapers seems to escort you as you complete this leg of the journey. Each step immerses you in a stillness that only deep water can offer. You enjoy this horizon of water before seeking the protection of the trees once again. As you circle the shore of the reservoir, your path encounters a structure that looks like a small castle guarding the water. It is the South Gate House, a granite building that defies the idea that the industrial must be cold or purely functional. You feel the gentle weight of its dark stone which shines under the rain with a dignity that has not diminished in 150 years. The architecture here is an exercise in profound respect for the landscape that surrounds you. The designers used rough granite and wrought iron so that these control stations would integrate into the park's aesthetics. As you approach its walls, you can hear a deep murmur arising from the depths of the rock. It is the heartbeat of the water moving through hidden valves and conduits, a reminder that a complex circulatory system exists beneath your feet. Notice calmly how the window frames and heavy iron doors preserve delicate ornamental details in the 19th century. Even a pumping station was treated as a work of art worthy of being admired. It was not enough for technology to fulfill its function. It had to be beautiful and harmonize with the weeping willows and the winding paths of the garden. This gatehouse is the exact point where the human ambition to manage nature bows before beauty. As you touch the cold metal of its ironwork, you realize that engineering can also have a poetic soul. These stations are the invisible lungs that allow water to flow calmly, maintaining balance without breaking the silence of the stroll. The rain hits the slate roof with a soft and constant rhythm. This sound unites the water from the sky with the water beating enclosed within this stone sanctuary. You take a moment to appreciate this perfect union between the useful and the purely aesthetic. It is a necessary pause to understand that the park is a great machine of well-being designed to go unnoticed. With this new understanding of the island's hidden heartbeat, you move away from the granite walls. The path invites you to follow onward, where the vegetation becomes denser and the stories of the forest wait to be discovered amidst the autumn mist. You leave behind the open horizon of the water to seek a corner of order and symmetry. As you cross the threshold of the Conservatory garden, the landscape changes its character once again. You find yourself in the North Garden, a space designed following the rigor and elegance of the French style. Here, nature does not overflow. Instead, it expresses itself through perfect lines and geometric shapes. Under the fine rain, the holly and yew hedges draw a pattern of astonishing precision. The branches are trimmed with such care that they look like walls of green velvet. You feel your steps become slower and more deliberate as you follow the rhythm of these straight paths. The visual order offers you a different kind of calm, a peace born of harmony and proportion. In the center of this botanical stage stands the Untermeier fountain. 3 bronze figures, known as the Dancing Maidens, spin in an eternal circle. Their hands are intertwined and their bodies lean with a grace that seems to defy the rigidity of the metal. The rain slides down their backs and pools in the folds of their robes, making the bronze shine with a dark and vivid tone. Listen to the sound of the fountain water mixing with the patter on the polished leaves. It is a crystalline murmur that fills the air with freshness. The scent here is clean, a mixture of wet earth and the sweet smell of freshly pruned vegetation. Can you feel the balance that emanates from such a careful design? It is a fascinating contrast to the untamed jungle you traversed miles ago. This garden is a tribute to the beauty born of the collaboration between man and the earth. Here, every element has its exact place, creating a refuge of mental clarity in the middle of the city. Raindrops rest on the flower beds like small glass pearls, highlighting the perfection of every curve. You stop in front of the maidens, allowing their silent dance to envelop you in a sense of wonder and serenity. You enjoy this classic elegance while the autumnal mist softens the edges of the hedges. In this corner, time seems to be governed by the laws of geometry and art. You take a moment to breathe this ordered air before the path invites you to discover the next garden. The walk continues south, seeking new forms of beauty in this botanical sanctuary. You leave behind French symmetry to enter a space of a much more open and serene scale. Before you, the central garden unfolds, a corner that evokes the grandeur of Italian Renaissance villas. The rain softens the colours of this setting, turning the green of the grass into a deep tone that invites rest. Before advancing toward the water, look at the entrance that leads to Fifth Avenue. The Vanderbilt gate stands as a black iron jewel, with details so fine they seem hand-embroidered. These gates belonged to New York's largest mansion before finding their definitive home here in 1939. Seeing them under the grey sky, you feel like you are crossing a threshold into an era of elegance and calm. At the heart of this garden, a single jet fountain projects water toward the sky. The jet rises with a vertical force that contrasts with the soft fall of the rain. Listen to the sound of the water hitting itself at the base. It is a constant murmur that creates a bubble of silence around the meadow. The verticality of the fountain guides your gaze upward, connecting the earth with the clouds. On the sides, the path leads you toward the large wisteria pergola that embraces the west end of the garden. Its white columns support a natural roof of ancient and twisted branches. Under this wooden canopy, you feel protected from the outside world. The aroma here is different, a mix of damp stone and the sleeping essence of the flowers. Walking through this corridor of shadow and light is an exercise in peace. The wooden benches invite you to stop and observe the perfection of the lawn, which today shines with the accumulated water in this Italian garden. Order does not seek to trap you, but rather to free you from daily rushes. You feel like a guest in a European country house where the only clock is the rhythm of the rain upon the stone. You breathe deeply, feeling how the cool air fills your lungs. The symmetry of the bushes and the breadth of the horizon grant you immediate mental clarity. You enjoy this refuge of classic elegance before your steps lead you toward the last corner of this sanctuary, divided into 3 worlds. To the south of the great Italian fountain, the landscape becomes more intimate and secret. You leave behind the severity of straight lines to enter the English-style garden. Here, plants seem to grow with poetic freedom, intertwining with one another without restrictions. The ground is covered by a dense carpet of perennial flowers that drink the rain gently. You feel that you have entered a much more human and romantic refuge. The design seeks to imitate the spontaneous beauty of rural English gardens. There are no perfectly trimmed hedges, but rather an abundance of textures and colours that change with each season. On this autumn day, the dahlias and chrysanthemums show their last vibrant colours among the dark green water drops way on the petals, making them bow their heads toward the damp earth. It is a planned disorder that invites you to awaken your curiosity. In the centre of this thicket, you discover a bronze corner that seems frozen in time. It is the fountain in memory of the writer Francis Hodgson Burnett. As you approach, you see 2 metal children who seem to share a secret under the mist of the park. They are Mary and Dickon, the protagonists of the book The Secret Garden. Rainwater slides down their youthful faces, giving them an almost lifelike and melancholic appearance in this secluded corner. Listen to the murmur of the lily pond that surrounds the bronze sculpture. The sound is a soft echo that gets lost among the foliage of nearby trees. The scent here is more complex and earthy, a blend of old wood and roots soaked by the storm. You feel that this garden embraces you, offering you a place where your own thoughts can bloom without haste. It is a space for meditation that connects art, literature, and the earth. You take a moment to rest on one of the wooden benches facing the fountain. This English garden concludes the tour of the most formal sector of the entire park. Here you have found 3 distinct worlds united by a passion for greenery and life. You feel a deep peace having travelled through this mosaic of plant cultures under the rain. With a light spirit, you prepare to return to the wilder paths that await you outside these walls. You feel the terrain becoming more rugged and the vegetation closing in with renewed force. You are entering the North Woods, 16 hectares of untamed nature that represent the wildest corner of this refuge. Here, the trails stop being decorative strolls to become dirt paths that rise and fall between massive rocks. It is a profound change in the energy of your walk. You look up and find yourself under a dome of bright colours. The oaks and maples of this area are colossi that seem to touch the grey New York sky. Their canopies are so dense that the rain no longer reaches you directly. You hear the rhythmic drumming of the water hitting the leaves high above. This vegetal roof creates a layer of sound that completely isolates you from the outside world. Soon, a new sound mixes with the rain, the murmur of water running forcefully. Before you appears the loch, a stream that meanders between the rocks with the freedom of a mountain river. Although it was designed with precision, its appearance is so wild that the deception is absolute. You stop in front of a small waterfall where the water leaps between blocks of Manhattan schist. The shine of the wet rock highlights the minerals that form it. If you observe the rock formations carefully, you will discover amazing details. There are perfectly polished circular cavities known as glacial potholes. These holes were carved by ice and friction thousands of years ago. Touching these cold stones is connecting with the most remote geological past of the island. In this forest, the city of glass and steel seems like a distant invention that no longer belongs to you. You do not see buildings nor hear the murmur of traffic. You only perceive the rhythm of the forest breathing under the storm and the smell of wet earth. The designers wanted this place to be a total escape, and they more than succeeded. You find yourself in the centre of a great metropolis, but your senses assure you that you are in an eternal jungle. It is the triumph of human vision over urban chaos, a gift of silence and shadow that invites you to lose yourself to find yourself again. You enjoy this forested solitude before the path takes you toward a new horizon. The true adventure of discovering the soul of the park continues among the trees. You venture into the heart of the valley, and the sound of water becomes the sole protagonist of your walk. You are following the course of El Loch, a winding stream that hides the most relaxing secrets of the northern sector. As you advance along the damp path, the first of the three waterfalls appears before you like an apparition of light and movement amidst the mist. The engineering behind this landscape is astonishing and subtle. Although the water comes from the city's supply system, it flows with a naturalness that completely deceives the senses. The rocks have been arranged with a rustic technique to imitate the riverbeds of the wildest mountains. Each stone was selected and placed so that the water would not only flow, but also sing. You stop in front of one of the highest waterfalls. The water hits the stone ledges, breaking into a white foam that shines under the autumn rain. The acoustics here have been designed with a clear intention. The constant and rhythmic roar of the waterfall creates a natural wall of sound. This murmur is dense enough to hide the noise of traffic and the echoes of the great metropolis. You walk over rustic bridges that seem to have grown organically over the current. As you lean on their wooden railings, you notice that the air here is colder and charged with microscopic droplets. The aroma is a revitalizing mixture of wet stone, fresh moss, and earth saturated by the rain. It is a microclimate where the humidity intensifies the colors of the ferns hanging over the water. The path becomes narrower and quieter between each waterfall. You feel like an explorer in a forgotten world, far from the glass skyscrapers. Here, the rain falling from the sky and the water running through El Loch merge into a single melody. It is a space that forces you to slow down and synchronize your breathing with the pulse of the stream. You watch as the golden leaves float in the eddies of water before falling down the next drop. Each waterfall is an invitation to contemplation and mental rest. In this corner, the vision of the designers reaches its highest point of harmony. They have managed to create a sanctuary where the water dictates the passing of time. You take a moment to absorb this liquid peace before following the course of the current toward the end of the valley. You finally emerge from the thicket of the forest and the ground becomes flat beneath your steps. Before you appears Harlem Meer, an immense mirror of water resting in the northeast corner. The name Meer is a heritage from the ancient Dutch settlers and means lake. It is a space of 11 hectares where the park's geography softens after the rocks and waterfalls. You feel the air here is more open and calm. The rain continues to fall with the same gentleness, but now the horizon expands. Weeping willows line the shore with a melancholy elegance. Their long, flexible branches fall like curtains of green silk over the liquid surface. The leaves brush the water with every breath of wind, creating almost invisible ripples. On the northern shore stands the Charles A. Dana Discovery Centre. Its Victorian architecture with dark wood beams seems taken from an ancient tale. Under the grey sky, the building offers an image of refuge and warmth. It is the educational heart of this area, a place where knowledge and nature shake hands. Near the wooden docks, the silence becomes deeper. Catch and release fishing is practiced here, an exercise in patience and respect. The fisherman returns the fish to the water after a brief encounter. It is a cycle of life that remains intact thanks to everyone's care. You hear the dull snap of a fishing line cutting through the air before plunging in. You have travelled the park from its southern entrance to this northern limit. Looking back, you understand the magnitude of this green lung. Central Park is a masterpiece that manages to silence the chaos of an entire metropolis. You feel your heart rate has finally synchronized with the pulse of the damp earth. The city awaits you just on the other side of the fence, but you carry the forest with you. Harlem Meer is the finishing touch for a walk full of sensory discoveries. You enjoy these last minutes of absolute peace before returning to the asphalt. The rain cleanses the air and your spirit, leaving a feeling of calm that will accompany you always. You stop for a moment to observe how the rain saturates the colour of the leaves. Do you feel how your heart rate has gradually decreased since you entered the park? This feeling of relief is not a coincidence or a simple physical rest. What you are experiencing is your brain's response to reconnecting with its original home. Scientists call this phenomenon biophilia. It is that innate and emotional bond that human beings maintain with other living systems. For millennia, our species evolved in green and open environments. That is why, by surrounding yourself with these trees, your nervous system recognizes that it is in a safe and nourishing place. City life subjects us to what experts call urban fatigue. Asphalt, traffic lights, and constant noise force us to use a directed and exhausting attention. In contrast here, the green acts as a psychological escape valve. Your mind stops analyzing dangers and begins to contemplate, allowing your mental energy to recover. The grey spaces of the metropolis keep us in a permanent state of alert. Concrete reflects noise and haste in an aggressive way. In this refuge, the soft rain and the rustling of the leaves offer a deep cognitive restoration. Central Park functions as a filter that cleanses the stress accumulated in the streets of glass and steel. This immense garden is also the shared backyard of millions of people. It is a space of equality where status dissolves among the undergrowth and the paths. By sharing this refuge, we feel part of something larger and more vital. Nature reminds us that, despite the chaos, we are still creatures who need the smell of wet earth. You inhale the air filled with ozone and humidity. You feel that every step through these paths has returned a bit of that peace that routine usually steals from us. The park is not just an aesthetic ornament in the city. It is a necessary medicine so that the human spirit can continue dreaming among the skyscrapers. You enjoy this mental clarity as you prepare for the final steps of your journey. As you walk on the damp earth, it is easy to believe that this landscape takes care of itself. However, the harmony that surrounds you is the result of constant and delicate labor. You observe the trees and the paths, perhaps unaware that this paradise was on the verge of disappearing a few decades ago. During the 70s, the park fell into a state of deep neglect. The meadows turned into fields of dry earth, and the monuments suffered under the weight of abandonment. It was in 1980 when the Central Park Conservancy was born. This group of citizens decided that the heart of Manhattan could not stop beating. Since then, an invisible army of gardeners and experts works to maintain this balance. Their greatest challenge is, curiously, our own presence. Each year, more than 40 million people walk along these paths. This constant traffic compacts the soil until it is as hard as asphalt. When the earth is squeezed too tightly, water and air cannot reach the roots. Gardeners must intervene with gentle techniques to aerate the ground. This allows the soil to breathe again, and the plants to continue growing. It is a process of silent healing that happens beneath your boots. If you look toward the crowns of the oaks, you might imagine specialists climbing among the branches. They are responsible for removing dead wood and monitoring the health of each specimen. Their work ensures that these giants continue to offer shade and comfort to future generations. It is a dance between protection and respect for the natural. Maintaining a forest in the middle of the city requires a vision for a sustainable future. Organic waste is recycled to create compost, and water is managed intelligently. The goal is for the human hand to be imperceptible. The aim is to always preserve that feeling of pure and wild nature. This effort reminds us that beauty is not something static. It is a living organism that requires attention and care. By caring for the park, we also protect our own capacity to find wonder. You walk with gratitude, knowing that every green corner is a gift protected by expert hands. The light begins to fade behind the storm clouds, tinting the sky a soft and deep violet. Your steps slow as you walk toward the exit, carrying with you the scent of the earth and the rhythmic sound of the rain. Central Park is left behind in the twilight, but this calm now belongs to you. I invite you to seek out your own green refuges, those corners where time seems to stand still. Thank you for walking these paths with me and for allowing this forest to embrace you. Subscribe so that we can continue discovering the beauty of our world together. May the whisper of the wet leaves and the peace of this autumn accompany you in every step you take today.